So there we have the idea of variations in grammar. And so let's move on into some other ways the quotations may have been different. First, there's the omission of certain portions of the verses. Maybe they wouldn't quote the whole verse. Writers of New Testament books occasionally shortened the Old Testament verses they quoted. An example is seen in the last line of Mark 4:12, where Jesus said, "Otherwise they might turn and be forgiven." This is a condensed rendering of the last half of Isaiah 6:10. Otherwise they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn and be healed. He's just shortened the idea, but they would have understood what he was talking about. In addition to the condensing, the synonym forgiven replaces the word healed. Okay, it doesn't change the meaning of the text. Matthew 15:8, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me, purposefully selects part of Isaiah 29:13. These people come near to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. But the main point is communicated even as the verse is somewhat condensed in its quotation. Secondly, so sometimes, things are, certain portions are omitted, they're condensed. Secondly, sometimes the New Testament writers would give partial quotations. For example, we talked about this before, when Jesus read from Isaiah 61:2 in the synagogue, as recorded in Luke 4, he stopped in the middle of verse 2 of Isaiah 61, not reading the words about the day of the Lord. This was because his carrying out the day of vengeance is yet future. So he only quoted the part that was appropriate for his first advent, to his first advent ministry. Another idea with regard to a quotation that changes is maybe the use of synonyms as the quote is brought into the New Testament. The word highway in Isaiah 40 verse 3 is replaced by the word paths in Matthew 3:3. Again, doesn't change anything fundamentally. And then sometimes the New Testament authors would not quote the Hebrew text in the New Testament. They would quote the Septuagint. And there's nothing wrong with quoting the Septuagint, for the writers did so under the inspiration of the Spirit, first of all. The common translation available to the people in Jesus' day was the Septuagint. In the days of the early church, also the Septuagint. Therefore, it was natural for them to quote it. On the other hand, many of the citations of the Old Testament and the New are from the Hebrew text, with which the Septuagint often agrees. So God, the Spirit, superintended over whether it was a quote from the Hebrew or the Septuagint to give us the points. Scholars have pointed out that no New Testament quotation from the Septuagint differs in any substantive way from the Hebrew Old Testament. That's very important. Very important. And then finally, all this above material from the, we talked about different ways it's quoted, variations in wording right on through to the idea of quoting from the Septuagint, where the New Testament writers made their quotes, preserved the thought of the Old Testament passage cited, even though they may not have given a verbatim quotation. Though they often did that, though, as well. We should not conclude that verbal variations that we've talked about now, have we noted, are inaccurate or affect inspiration or inerrancy. They do not affect the doctrine of the verbal inspiration of Scripture.